I'm going to try to make a case. I'm Means and Stefan Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis, and this is Buckeye Talk. We just talked to our final position group of fall camp, which means fall camp is officially over for us, and all of our attention can go towards the Texas game next Saturday. Get the text 614-350-3315. Back to my case. We were talking with the tight ends on Wednesday afternoon, and it got me thinking, is the tight end room the best room on the roster? And I'm going to let Stefan go first so he can tell me how much of a crazy person I am.
Yeah, I think the best position group on the roster is wide receiver. I think you have a solidified first-round pick in Jeremiah Smith, a guy in Carnell Tate who's probably going no worse in the second round, and a guy in Brandon Innes who might lead this team in receptions because of the position that he plays, on top of which it's five-star after five-star after five-star behind them, and that's not even counting the guys who haven't arrived to Ohio State.
And they're not in the room. You can't include them. They're in modern day's room.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. That's where kind of the conversation ends for me. I think receiver is the best, but I do think this tight end room is really deep, and I do think that there's kind of, for lack of a better term, before we started this video, I called it a myth of just like how the perception around Ohio State's tight end room has built itself in terms of like Ohio State doesn't use tight ends. They have all these receivers that, you know, G. Scott didn't have a ton of catches, and Max Clear's reception total is going to go down from what it was at Purdue, and like sure, like maybe that's true, and I think you and I are in agreement that Max Clear's reception total will dip from the 51 he had at Purdue last year. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that means Ohio State doesn't use tight ends. Keenan Bailey was just talking to us about, you know, against Notre Dame, the times that they used 13 and 14 personnel and how much we saw the tight ends on the field throughout that playoff run. G. Scott had a huge catch, but also G. Scott, that catch was, you know, setting up other plays that Ohio State was using throughout the playoffs. So, like, Ohio State uses tight ends. It might not look like what we think a great tight end is, like what Travis Kelce does in the NFL, what Gronk did in the NFL, and things like that. Like, it might look different, but Ohio State uses tight ends. And Keenan Bailey was also talking about kind of the process of Ohio State drawing up plays and deciding what they're going to call. And, you know, Hartline and Day will have an idea, and Keenan Bailey will joke, like, well, we can run this play in 12 personnel, or we can run this play in 13 personnel. Like, this is all on the table. Like, Ohio State uses tight ends, and I think that's interesting for this year because even if Max Clear's reception totals do take a dip, that's a team. That's a unit that's very deep because I think we're going to see Will Kazmarek used a ton. I think Bennett Christian has grown a lot in his time at Ohio State. He's talking about how he's a leader and he's the guy who's been around here longest among the tight ends. Like, you kind of forget that sometimes. I think we'll see what Jelani Thurman's role look like, but that's a fourth tight end who's been around Ohio State and has all the physical traits to be really good. So it's like this is a very deep room, and that might not mean a lot of receptions, but it does mean that they're going to be used a ton and be a key part in this offense's success.
Andrew, what do you think? Tight end room, best on the team?
No, but I think the case you're going to make is not a Looney Tunes one. And the thing that I like about the tight end room is that you've got different guys that fit different descriptions. You've got Max Clair, who Ohio State says is the best receiving tight end in the country. You've got Will Kazmarek, who Ohio State says is the best blocking tight end in the country. Then you follow that up with Bennett Christian, who's probably more towards Max Clair than he is Will Kazmarek. You've got Jelani Thurman, a 6'7" athletic freak who's on the depth chart as like maybe this team's fourth tight end. You go down the line and everybody fits a different role, right? You know, I mean, a receiver, I guess the equivalent would be like if you had a room of a 6'5" guy, you have a shifty slot, you have another guy who does a little bit of everything, and then you've got a guy who's just an absolute burner, track speed type of guy. Like, that would be kind of the equivalent of the receiver room. I do think it's the receiver room because, I mean, you've got the best offensive player in the country, maybe the best player in the country is in general at Jeremiah Smith. I mean, Carnell Tate, we're talking about him as potentially a first-round pick down the line. He might not ever be the number one receiver on his own college team, and he might go in the first round. And Mecca Egbuka just did it. He was never the number one receiver on his college team, and people in Tampa are like, whoa, look at this guy. So I think it's still receiver. I think corner has a case as well. I think corner has a decent case, but Ohio State's tight end room is good. And when you look at why, I think it's because of all of those things that I listed. It is not necessarily we're just going to put Max Clair out there and he's going to go do everything for us. We're going to put this one or two guys out. You have so many different guys that do so many different roles, and they do that role very, very well. And I'm sure there's somebody out there who's saying, no, we here at Iowa have the best blocking tight end in the country, better than Will Kazmarek. Or, no, we here at whatever school have the best receiving all right, whatever. We can have the minutia debates there. But the point is that Ohio State has many, many different options because of your tight end room.
How many cornerbacks are going to play against Texas?
4.
No, like true outside corner.
3.
How many wide receivers are going to play against Texas?
Probably 4 or 5.
You think there are 4 or 5 wide receivers that play against Texas?
That get a snap, probably, yeah.
I don't agree with either one of those. I think 2 outside cornerbacks are going to play the entire time, and I don't think J.J. Carnell and Brandon Ennis are coming off the field unless one of them is coming off of the field because they're going 12 personnel. Because they're coming off the field to put another tight end. That's what 12 personnel is. Remember, I didn't say most talented. And both of you chose rooms that have more talent based on websites and their recruiting pedigree. I said best room. There is not a room on this roster that can go as deep as what the tight end room can go. We just got done talking with Keenan Bailey. He's talking about Nate Roberts playing for them this year, and he's a true freshman playing a position that's developmental by trade, and he is saying he's going to play real football for them this year. Okay, fine. Yes, Ohio State's wide receiver room has one guy that we are 100% sure is a first-round draft pick. Well, Max Clare is here, and he might be a first-round draft pick. If we're just talking talent for talent, I agree. Cornerback and wide receiver are probably better. The linebacker room is probably better. The offensive line room might be a little bit better when you're just talking about recruiting talent. But when you're talking about doing your job, what they are being asked to do, the fact that you have multiple guys who can play multiple different roles, and the importance of the tight end position in the Ryan Day offense, because they're not going 4 wide. They run a lot of 12 personnel and 13 personnel and 14. Like Keenan Bailey was talking about, he got asked about the idea of how often when they're designing plays does he go, what if we threw some tight ends in there? And I can guarantee you that Brian Hartline and Ryan Day are like, yeah, what if we did throw some tight ends in there? That would be kind of special. I think the unique skill sets of this tight end room mixed with what their job is going to be. When you're talking about doing your job, I think you can make a case that the tight end room is the best room on this roster because they have more people than any other room where it feels like the assistant coach who is running that room is confident that he can play those guys. We're going to see the top 3 guys at wide receiver. We're going to see the top 2 guys at cornerback. And if something happens where they need to rotate, they will because if somebody's tired or somebody gets hurt. I think we're going to see 4 or 5 tight ends play against Texas because that's how they're game planning this thing. And that's how Ohio State's offense runs. The tight end position is so much more important, to your point, than just whether or not they have the ball in their hands. And when you're that important to what an offense wants to do, yeah, you're not the most talented. Yeah, you have to do a lot of the dirty work. But I think that makes you the best, even if it's not the most talented. 614-350-3315. That was like a 7-minute version of this. I'm going to do this for 45 minutes on a podcast. It's over there. We're going to argue this on a podcast for 45 minutes. You should go check out Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. And 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial. We're less than 10 days away from Ohio State playing Texas in Ohio Stadium, number 1 versus number 2. I'm Steven. That's Stefan, and that's Andrew. Talk to you later.